So there are many young people. I think I've asked this question to several others. There's so many young people that are vying for the ministry now today. Earlier on, I did mention that we used to think about ministry in that kind of a way. It's for old people, people that have retired. They don't have any source of income. So they open a church to sustain themselves. Probably never heard the call of God. Perhaps the call was there, but then this is just probably coupled with survival. But now we see young people fresh from maybe high school, they get into seminary. What would you say to a young minister who wants to belong in ministry?
One of the things that I have been grateful for is practical theology.
Yeah.
I'm a practical theologian.
Yeah.
And in practical theology, you have to learn how to practice theology. You have to learn how to practice ministry. How that worked with what I was doing was also a miracle. I didn't realize here that I was fulfilling the basics of practical theology sitting under an experienced minister. And having to learn the ropes of ministry, having to understand what it took to prepare a sermon and how you would be able to reach out to the congregation. And one of the things that my pastor taught me is, you may not be a good preacher, you may not be a good teacher, but you must love the people.
Ministry is about people.
Yes, you must love the people, and that will overcome your lapses and your shortcomings, because you are just a man, and your potential may not be what might be. But if you love them, they will love you back. They will be happy that they have a shepherd, and they will acknowledge you for that. So for those years that I went through that process of sitting under somebody who was very, very gracious, a very, very good man of God, he really helped me to gain confidence in ministry. He helped me to understand the challenges. It's not going to be all easy. There are difficult circumstances that you have to deal with as a minister. When maybe somebody dies, or you have to do this, you have to reach out to the family. That is hard. And it takes a lot out of you to reach out. Having to visit the sick, you don't even know what to say. That's hard. And it is to be learned. When you don't have resources at the house, how do you handle that even as a pastor? So many times we believe that there is a certain group of men who never go through that. But I have discovered, even from his stories, that any place, he pastored for many years in America, but yet his stories were just as consistent as here, where they would also go, they would wonder, what are we going to eat today? How are we going to sustain our family? And yet, they would see the hand of God. God would sustain them. Same. So those things I learned. So he also taught me that don't just look to the church. Don't see what the support as it is coming from the church. It is God who is providing. So you have that concept that it's whatever you receive, God will take care of you through the church, through any other means. It comes from God. So you acknowledge Him. So we learned very quickly. I learned that. So even ministry itself, he insulated me in such a way that he helped me to develop my creativity as my confidence built. And as I worked, he would harness, I would go back to him, what do you think about this? He would say, you are okay. If I made a mistake, he never really came across and just took me down,
Yeah.
he would keep me lifted up and say, no,
Yeah.
if you had thought about doing it this way, it would be good. And if it related to the church, I'll tell you, he protected me. He protected me so much that I did not suffer from the targeting of the congregation.
Yes.
I was well secure before him and before the congregation. He made sure that he protected me from any of that, because it could easily have destroyed my confidence and my commitment.
Yeah.
So part of that comes from learning from an experienced minister, an experienced pastor, helped me to get the foundation. Yes. And I also took time to learn from others. And I've not stopped learning from other people.
Yeah.
So it has provided me with some stability. I don't know all things, but these days, I mean, you are here, you know, I ask you questions. I ask you questions about technology and what technology is doing today, how it can impact the congregation, because I don't know it. So I come to people like you without shame and knowing that you are adding to my potential.
Yeah.
So those kind of things have helped me. And that's what practical theology is all about.
Yeah.
You have to learn. It's almost like a doctor. Man, you don't come out of school and immediately you go and begin to operate. You begin
Cut
to run
open somebody's...
Oh my God. But I have seen a lot of young men who have been destroyed because they've been thrust in the middle of a church. And churches are not always kind.
No.
And churches have expectations that exceed what one individual can do.
Yeah.
So in many instances, even the students themselves feel like they can do it, and I appreciate their zeal, but they don't realize that it takes much more than just being there
zealous,
and doing what they can. They need to find a space where they can learn and where they can grow and get the resilience that when it becomes their turn to lead, to be up front, which will come before too long. It will come. Then they should be ready, having gone through that period working together with someone. Yes. But they should not be in a hurry to push off the old man and think he's wasting time, he blocks me, he doesn't do this, he's Amazikonda or things like that. I hear those. No, that man, he doesn't give you the pulpit and all that, but you learn a lot. One of the things I learned a lot was leading worship, because my pastor would bring the messages. I was the worship leader, and even when my turn came to preach, I was very comfortable, because I had picked from his style of delivery, even though I had my own unique one, but I was learning from him.
I think that I agree pretty much with what you are saying. I've always gone against the idea of a student leaving seminary and going straight to pastor an entire congregation, because in most of the cases, I think you may agree with me that the churches that are there in our Baptist fellowship circles, most of them are already established churches. I think we do lead you of church planting and attaching people to churches that have been recently planted. So you'll find that somebody is going to inherit a church that has already been, structured. It already has a vision, it has a direction where it's going. And then you come fresh from seminary. You go, and the first temptation that you're going to succumb to is trying to bring change abruptly. And then you end up messing up. And I also agree that, also grateful at the same time with the deliberate attempt by the seminary to advocate this. Yes,
students under the
it's already serving
already
pastors.
churches.
Which is a lot of help.
Exactly. So I had to learn that very quickly.
Yeah.
Nobody taught me that.
Yeah.
When I went to international, you know, you expect the church suddenly to endear you, to love you, to think about this. But I began to hear, you know, these conversations because there had been other associate pastors before me.
Yeah.
So I began to hear, they would talk about this other associate who left, how dynamic he was.
Yeah, he would do this and
kind
that.
he would do this. So I began to
The
get
pressure.
uncomfortable. But in talking with my wife, because now I'm beginning to get frustrated because it's like you are not there.
Yeah.
They are just talking about this one who was and he left and how he used to do things.
Yeah.
So she said, you know, they don't know you. Give time. Give it time. Then they will warm up to you. They will know you. And when they know you, they will realize you have your own way of doing things and how your contributions can be.
Yeah.
So I learned to give space to the congregation and not to be upset when they were talking about the others that had left, because I'm now there. And there are things that I will contribute to the ministry of the church, which the other person is not, they are gone.
Yeah.
And that's why they have me here. So it didn't bother me from that point on, and I didn't even worry.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would even join the conversation, tell me more what he did.
Yeah.
How did it go? And by the second year, the conversations about those other people were gone. Were gone.
Interesting. Now, if there's been one thing that I think I'm personally passionate about, is the Baptist ethos. The Baptist church in Zambia today is undergoing drastic change with, I think, rampant importation of different practices from other denominations, congregations, and everything, to a point where I feel like we're slowly losing our identity. What's your take on that?
I'm very grateful. This is the way I will answer it. I'm very grateful that we do have churches that have not been spoiled.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. So I don't get distracted by the majority who seem to have gone the popular way. And the answer to all this, in my view, is discipleship.
Okay.
The congregations, the leaders need to go through discipleship before they can assume leadership. The other thing, discipleship also includes the understanding of Baptist faith and heritage.
Yeah.
That's part of discipleship. And if somebody is discipled, they really know what we believe and why we believe what we believe. And they are part of the Baptist faith by conviction and not by convenience, because that's the only church that is closer to them, or the church that opened the door to them. But they will be convinced this is what we believe, and they will not go the popular way. And I know the way you are talking about is that most of our churches have become victims of neo-Pentecostalism and its practices. That is very unfortunate. And the other unfortunate part is that some pastors have gone that way because that seems to be what the people seem to appreciate, and they give it to them. I think the scriptures have something to say about that. But we need to have churches that are true to what they believe and what they practice. What is written is very Baptist in nature. But what is happening in practice is completely foreign. So this is where we are.
Yeah.
And because we don't have the majority, and unfortunately, the majority of churches have departed. They believe and they practice the popular theology.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that same vein, I think part of the things that I've been noticing personally is also importation of stuff from the culture, not only from other denominations, but also from the culture. The waves of feminism that are coming, Baptists want to also go that way and say, well, we're going to have female pastors soon.
Oh, we'll wait for that day. But you know, the importation of things, I've not only seen this kind of liberal movement,
Yeah.
and the things that seem all the more popular in practice and trying to introduce them in. We have our own challenge with female deacons and all that. We have churches that do not have that, others do, but we can't break bonds over that.
Yeah.
We will leave it the way it is because of who we are.
Yeah.
But my biggest worry is coupled with neo-Pentecostalism is African traditional religion.
Syncretism.
Yes, that is where syncretism is coming in. We see it at funerals.
Yeah.
We see it when people are sick. We see it even at marriages.
Yeah.
We see individuals trying to include both. So where you have big problems. So you and myself must constantly be alert because we can very easily be pulled into this syncretistic practice, which seems good, but really what we are doing is the ATR and Neo-Pentecostalism are brother and brother or brother and sister, and they thrive,
they thrive
side by side. So that is a big danger. And unless, now I come to you, unless you and your generation are alert and plant your feet firmly on the ground, then the church will be safe. But if you get to a point where you feel you lose your fight, you will lose it. And you will be swallowed.
Yeah.
So that's what I can say, and I can encourage you. And that's what we need.
Yeah.
We need individuals who are leading our churches who have pure motives. Now you come back to where we started. Yes, you cannot completely take responsibility for the motives that individuals have when they say they've been called, because we cannot know if somebody has been called or not until their works show it, until their commitment becomes clear. So you can see that, that some will be at one church, then they will not be happy, we are not being taken care of properly, they'll move on to another place or to another place, but I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Because I was committed and I'm still committed unless they ask me leave. But if they don't, then we will go as far as we can go, and then the Lord will say, now rest. That's the way it will go. So that's why we have been where we have been. Yeah.
So one of the things that you've been involved in, I think that at the beginning of the conversation you did highlight the fact that God used you, or maybe you felt like God wanted to use you in supporting people that have
that are missionary.
Yes. And so I think one of the things that God has fulfilled that is placing you in a position where you yourself are training people for ministry. I think that's how I've seen that play out, even when we're having our conversation. But then there seems to be a resistance, especially in our circles, to theological education?
Theological education is work.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Theological education shapes your calling. Theology educates your theological convictions. It makes them clear.
Yeah.
You understand God and what your role really is.
Yeah.
And you get schooled in a very clear way. And theology will do that. And because it is work, people don't want to work hard. People want to do easy theology or street theology. People don't want to go to school because they'll tell you it's the Holy Spirit who does this.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole thing. You will have a lot of appreciation by sitting and learning and analyzing all these things, having the skills that will help you to be analytical and to think beyond the normal. You will be able to understand scriptures. You will be contextual in your approach. So those kind of things you pick through theology and learning, which you will never stop.
Yeah.
But those who go the easy way, you can only do what you can do up to a certain point, and then you don't have any more to give to your people. And then you are in trouble. You are in trouble. And the people begin to get agitated because this man suddenly is just become creative. He has to create this in order to make the people peaceful and not do that.
Yeah.
So those are some of the issues that I basically see, and we cannot help but acknowledge that with this huge move of the church in sub-Saharan Africa growing, the majority of the growth has been with African independent churches and has been with neo-Pentecostal churches, and their influence cannot be avoided.
Yeah.
So our people, they are the people who are on television, they are the people who hold mass meetings, and they invite our people. Come and learn. Come, there is this. So our people go. And there are those young theologians, I'll put inverted commas, who look at others and believe, there are very few who believe that within our circles we do have men who they can go to and learn something, or even go to and ask questions about ministry, especially when I look around and I see men who have had longevity here in Lusaka, maybe 6, 7 men who have remained resolute in one place. I wonder how many people have gone to them. Usually it is, hey, we are just the same.
Yeah.
We all serve the same God.
There's nothing to learn.
There's nothing to learn. After all, these are old. And that's what I hear. Usually from the young, that these are old, you know, thrust them off the way. Yes. So
they're irrelevant in this generation.
they are irrelevant. They don't know anything. They don't even have the Holy Spirit. Unfortunately, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Aribe Mzim. So that is a big problem in that now we have gone that way.
Yeah.
And this is where now we have, unfortunately, or I can say, maybe for another day we can talk about the issue of feminism, which will, in the group of churches that we have, there is it is getting in, and we are getting more educated females. And they have very dynamic minds, and they are in leadership, and so they are very ambitious. So they can very easily they are influencing and working their way in.
Yeah.
So the congregations must be well structured, that we teach, we disciple whoever comes in, so that they are able to understand Scripture. We have some very godly women who understand, who know what it means to practice faith as Baptist, and to practice faith as the Baptist that we are. Now, I know in Zambia and even outside of Zambia, we have Baptist churches who are ordaining women.
Yeah.
And our women go to conferences and they see these women from other countries who have been ordained. Then they ask the question, what about us?
What about us?
What about us?
Tasalida.
So I always tell them, just go and worship. Don't begin to pick on these little bitty things.
Yeah.
But I see that as a debate for another day. I don't know when it will peak.
Yeah, it's in the pipelines.
I don't know when it is going to peak, but I pray that it doesn't happen. And when it happens, you are there.
No. That's a huge battle.
Yes, you will be there to handle it.
Yeah. But, you know, first of all, I want to appreciate the time that you've had, just share experiences and your thoughts on some of these things. But if it was your time, or maybe I would say your Acts 20 time, where, like the Apostle Paul, you called to yourself the elders of the church at Ephesus. Now it's your time, you call to yourself the elders of the church in Zambia. What would you say to them?
One, defend the faith, keep the integrity of our theology to be the way it has always been. It would also be reach out to the lost in this age and time, disciple, and help those that God is bringing to us grow through the process. In short, all I can say is be faithful to the one who called you. Faithfulness to God, then faithfulness to our congregation or to our denomination. Then we will be in good shape.
So,
yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll be praying for another opportunity, and that opportunity, I think, is equally important. Because you have served for a long time as the executive secretary of the Baptist Fellowship of Zambia. And one thing I will tell you is that there are people out there who are listening and they have no clue what the work of the Baptist Fellowship of Zambia is, what role they play in terms of the Baptist denomination and our local congregations as Baptists. They have no clue. They have no clue what the mission of the Baptist Fellowship of Zambia is. And I would really, I'm praying hard for that moment when we have another chance, then we can talk about the Baptist Fellowship of Zambia.
I will be very delighted.
Yeah. But thank you very much once again for the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been my delight.
Thank you very much for viewing the podcast today. I know you've learned quite a lot from Doctor. So until next time.
Thank you very much. God bless you.